I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Bom, então vou trazer o John Bryant para a gente conversar aqui para a tela. Hi, John. Welcome.
My pleasure to be with you.
For taking the challenge to share your journey, your knowledge, and your impact. We are keen to hear from you, to learn from you. And so, for any further ado, I would like, to give you the space to start sharing a bit of the journey of all the project, their impact, and then we just will come back for questions and for a quick chat. Okay?
It's my pleasure. Honored to be with you. I have enjoyed watching the passion on presenters' faces. That passion for change, for empowerment, for self-determination, for ownership of one's own life is a universal look on someone's face. I may not speak Portuguese, I may not understand a dialect, but I understand human communication, and that communication is the same look that is on my African brother's face when I go to African continent. It is on the same look on the face of my brothers and sisters here in America. I consider Thomas an extended brother. We are, along with Raj and others, associated with conscious capitalism. And we are all living, I think, or we acknowledge that we're living right now in a moment in history. That history doesn't feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that doesn't mean that the moment is not exactly and precisely historic. And the question is, what do we do with it? The moment is pregnant. How do we give birth to a new reality there in Brazil, as we're trying to do here in the United States? I would encourage people watching this in Brazil and around the world, in Latin America and other places throughout the world, in the US, to not just get discouraged because it doesn't feel like you're making clear progress. Or maybe it feels like the so-called bad guy is getting ahead. Dr. King lived in the city I live in right now, Atlanta, Georgia, where my mentor and play father, Ambassador Andrew Young, lives to this day. He lives around the corner from where I am right now. But Dr. King traveled 6 million air miles over 13 years, gave 2,600 speeches. But all we tend to remember, really, of all that is one speech in Washington, I Have a Dream, maybe a few of the marches in the southern states. I know we have academics amongst the viewers today. Maybe they know of Letter from a Birmingham Jail, which I think is his most extraordinary contribution of writing and thought leadership. But he was about so much more than that. But all of that activity reduced itself to a couple moments. One could argue that he gave 1,000 speeches in order to be remembered for one. But if he didn't give those 1,000 speeches, no one would have heard the one. And I want you to understand that your energy is not lost. Hank Aaron, who lives around the corner from me also, has the record for the most home runs in baseball. He also has the record for the most strikeouts in baseball. All right? You cannot hit a ball that you do not swing at. Brazil has been swinging at balls for a long time. And I'm proud to be talking to and with a country that is the largest country in Latin America, the largest country in South America, the sixth largest country, I believe, by population in the world. And for a time, and I think you're going to come back to this time, for a time, it was the most prominent, most progressive, most successful example of a country primarily of color in the world with a dynamic and booming middle class. There are correlations between Brazil and the United States. your favelas. I heard one of the speakers talking about the favelas. Our analogy here would be a ghetto or an inner city neighborhood. Now, right there is a differentiation. Yours are mostly, as I understand it, suburban, rural. They're not in the city center. Thomas can correct me when I'm wrong here. That's very much like Europe, by the way. Europe, an inner city is a place called Paris, called London. They realize that these inner cities are very, very valuable real estate, and they push the poor people to the suburbs. That happened in Brazil. The difference, though, is that where favelas were developed in the 19th century, which is the 1800s, when Brazil came into being, the largest population of people of African descent in the world outside of Africa is Brazil. And Thomas, I think, told me that approximately half of the population of Brazil have some African ancestry. That's amazing. And the favelas were originally called African settlements. That's where a lot of people who didn't have a place to go were sent. It happened after one of your wars. And, that's an interesting analogy because in America, you had American slaves who participated in the largest reverse transfer of wealth in world history. We're the largest economy in the world still to this day. So it makes sense to say that it's the largest reverse transfer of wealth in world history. I'll save you the details of that so we can get on with where I'm going, which is Up From Nothing, my new book, which comes out October 6th. But I wanted to frame this context and help you understand how we're all in this together and we're all interrelated. And the color really is, in the US, is green. Whatever the color the currency is in Brasilia. It's Thomas, what color is the currency in Brazil?
Well, each bill has a different color. So we have green, blue, yellow, orange. So each the value.
Given a place is that diverse, it makes so much sense. And by the way, you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. So yes. It's a scientific fact. So it makes sense that the currency is of a rainbow coalition. And the point here is that slavery was not about a moral issue, really. It was about free labor. And it was about me working my tail off and not getting the benefit of my labor. So we missed out on labor for 246 years here in the United States. And then I couldn't create capital for myself. But my great great grandfather, let me say my great great grandfather was a slave. And by the way, he got out of slavery by owning a small farm, becoming a business owner. His son became a business owner. My father became a business owner. And I'm now the 95th largest Black-owned business in America. That is not an accident. That's intentional. But let me get back to the story. For 246 years, somebody else got the benefit of our hard work and our labor. We weren't lazy. We worked hard. We just didn't get the benefit of our labor. And then we couldn't create capital from the money we didn't get from labor because we were capital. We were traded. We were financed. We were bartered. We were insured. In fact, the word millionaire, which is one of the top 5 words in the world, the word millionaire comes from 1840, 1850, New York City, where the largest trading activity in New York City at that time was cotton. And 2/3 of the US economy, GDP, gross domestic product, was cotton. And the wealthiest city in the world per capita, Thomas, in 1840, 1850 was Natchez, Mississippi, which traded in cotton, which was picked, of course, by slaves. And slavery was going out of vogue. But an inventor created the cotton mill. And the cotton mill and a few other interventions around cotton made it extraordinarily efficient, unfortunately for slaves, to pick and process cotton. So the value of slaves went up 50%. 50 times. So the richest city in the world was this little place in Mississippi. And my point here is that we went to war over some stupid stuff in the United States, the Civil War. And it's interesting that the poorest state in America now is Mississippi. I think they're still attached to a backwards business model. They're still arguing over race when everybody else is arguing over money, which is if you're going to have an argument, that's the right one. And we should be collaborating to figure out how we can create more money and as a result of that, more wealth, not arguing over who gets it. But the correlation between Brazil and America is this. We were promised 40 acres and a mule. And Lincoln was killed. This was now 1865. And then Lincoln created a bank called the Freedmen's Bank to teach freed slaves about money, financial literacy, what I'm so passionate about. And then Lincoln was killed before the bank could make progress. And Frederick Douglass tried to run that bank when Lincoln was killed. He put the equivalent of $20 million today in that bank, $10,000 back then, to try to save it. So Frederick Douglass was not just an abolitionist, Thomas. He was a businessman. He owned real estate in Baltimore, Maryland. And what's the problem with African Americans today? Put Beyonce aside and Oprah and all the things you see on TV. It's a population of people who don't have wealth, and they don't have wealth because they didn't have land, and they were not able to build generational wealth, which is why we are 8% of the net worth of our mainstream counterparts today. You look at Brazil, and you can tell a similar story. The favelas have complicated ownership rights, and you don't have people who have a sense of owning their own life, and nobody washes a rental car, Thomas. No one washes a rental car. You're not really all that concerned about something you don't own. Now let me pivot to, that was a history lesson. That was about talking about how much we have in common. Now let's pivot to where we go from here. My new book is really about three things. It's about surviving in Operation Hope, which I created as the largest nonprofit financial inclusion organization in America. With 4 million clients, and we've directed $3.5 billion in capital to underserved neighborhoods. And we're about to launch, we've called for a new Marshall Plan, which is a revitalization of a country, including her African American founders, co-founders, through business and through ownership, but I'm getting ahead of myself. How do we get here? How do we all get here? And how do we get out of this mess? In America, African Americans, poor whites, and Native American Indians are in the same boat today, Thomas, because we didn't get the things that made us successful. We didn't get a strong family structure. We didn't get as much education as we can shove down our throats. We didn't get the memo on math and financial literacy and how economics and ownership and entrepreneurship and small business works in society. This is a big part of it. We had crappy role models and crappy environment, and there was no clear place or clear way to operationalize this form of freedom. And we have found pretty consistently around the world, when you miss 3 of the 5 key components to be successful, you're actually left in the back of the bus. And my Jewish friends, by contrast, when Hitler tried to exterminate them and he killed 1/3 of them, what they had intact, Thomas, before Holocaust and after, were the 5 things we found that make you a winner. Now, there are 3 groups: survivors, thrivers, and winners. Now, who came to America? Did all Portuguese? Did all Italians, Germans, Jewish? You pick the country. Did all of them come to America? Of course not. A very small percentage of them had the chutzpah and the energy and the dream to get here. So what do you have in America? This country of dreamers. This country of people who had this type A personality to go create something out of nothing. Hold on to that thought. What's a winner? A winner is somebody who's decided they won, who knew they won something before they ever won anything. Or put another way, a winner is somebody who believed they were a winner before they won anything. What happened to the folks who were the early settlers in Brazil? The winning was beat out of them. The self-esteem was beat out of them. The can-do was beat out of them. What happened to the early settlers who were not part of the wealthy class in America? If you were a big, bulky, black African dude, they held you down, abused your family until you stopped fighting. They're trying to get you to become machinery and stop having this strong spirit. And what do you need to be successful? High self-esteem, high confidence, belief in yourself. It's critically important. What do you have? What do you need if you don't have that? Role models. But if you don't have role models, if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th.
Yeah.
If you don't have role models, what do you need? Family. What did we break up? Family. If you don't have role models or family or high self-esteem, what do you need? Education. So that you know better, so that you can do better. Okay, did we have that? No, we didn't. I mean, you can go on and on and on. So it makes, I want to take the mystery out of success. Those who have had outside success of every color, of every creed, again, everybody knows Michael Jordan's name. Everybody knows, the basketball players and Hank Aaron, baseball, Oprah Winfrey, my friend Quincy Jones, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all these people go on and on and on. There's countless examples of this in Brazil.
Yeah.
Knew they were a winner before they won anything. Now, what are most people that are we're concerned about? What group are they in? Surviving. They're in the surviving class. What is the middle class in Brazil? They're in the thriving class. Okay, you cannot have a democracy without that middle class. And you need this group over here, survivors, to know that they can be thrivers. They can go into a group where that they're making good money. Maybe they can get rich. Maybe they can go on a vacation. But building wealth is different than getting rich. Getting rich is about making money. Thriving is a getting business, getting paid, getting a vacation, getting a new job, getting a new car, getting a retirement. It's getting a career. It's a getting game. But winning entrepreneurship is a building business. Build a community. Build a family. Build yourself. Build a business. Build a series of daycares, not just one. Build the biggest church in Brasilia. Build the biggest high-tech company. Build the biggest nonprofit. I built 2 of the biggest companies in America for African Americans, the biggest nonprofit financial inclusion organization, and the biggest for-profit owner of single-family rental homes in America, Operation Hope and the Promise Homes Company. And just one of these companies is one of the top 100 companies for Blacks in America, and it's only 3 years old.
Wow.
Now, I didn't do that because I'm smarter or whatever. There's a lot of people smarter than me, Thomas. But I believe. And I'm going to stop now in a minute. And I want to sort of get engaged in a conversation with you before we run out of time and we can take some questions. But we've got to have a new business plan around the world. People there's a report that was issued last week here from Citigroup that proved that showed mathematically that the lost GDP from racism of Blacks alone in America is $16 trillion US from the year 2000 to the year 2020. 20 years. Thomas, forget about the 1960s. Forget about
last century.
Forget about going out to 300 years of oppression and 400 years of slavery. I don't even know how you calculate that. But 20 years, Thomas, is $15 trillion. Our whole GDP in America every year is only $20 trillion. Imagine what would happen here in America if we got people off of the benches of opportunity. When you're playing football or playing soccer, you have people sitting on the sideline. What if you got them off the benches, off the sidelines, and put them in the game? I mean, we've got to stop seeing this as a zero-sum game or if you win, I lose. No. If everybody in Brazil is doing better, then Brazil is doing better because the majority of the economy is consumer spending, like every place else in the world. But if consumers don't have anything to spend, then, or as I put another way, my rich friends need my poor friends to do better if only to stay rich. I think I'm gonna give you 8 minutes to quiz me and question me before we pivot to questions. I believe in Brazil. I believe that there's lost GDP, gross domestic product. I believe in the favelas, and in the struggling middle class, in the left behind and the forgotten. I believe there are entrepreneurs waiting to be born that have been forced by circumstance or by culture to become drug dealers. I mean, what do we think a drug dealer is? It's illegal, it's immoral, it's unethical, it's disgusting. There's a special place in hell reserved for somebody who sells death to their own community. Get that out of the way. Now, what is a drug dealer if not an immoral and unethical entrepreneur who understands import, export, finance, market, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics? It goes on and on and on. What is a gang leader if not a frustrated union organizer? What would have happened, Thomas, if these folks had proper role models? So in America, I can't talk a lot about it for 2 weeks, but 2 to 3 weeks, I want your people to follow the Hope Global Forum that's going to launch here on 19th and 20th. I've told my people, because we've got it sponsored, that the normal $5,000 per person that gets charged US to participate in the forum is going to be at no cost, free. We're going to comp all the participants around the world who want to watch what happens on October 19th and 20th. We have some of the biggest leaders in the world who will be speaking, including the #1 company in the world, Walmart, CEO Doug McMillan, and a bunch of others, my friend Deepak Chopra, a bunch of other players, and people who look like me also, who are very successful. And we're going to launch something that's around building up Black businesses in America over 10 years. I'm not going to give the details, but it's going to be very powerful and very transformational. I want to challenge my friends in Brazil to not just be PhDs, but to be PhDs too. I want to challenge them to think about what they could do to build up, to look at the poor, the so-called poor neighborhoods and those in them, to look at the struggling class and see, can these folks become business owners, which is about getting an income and getting revenue, and entrepreneurs, which is about building business and building wealth and building opportunity. If we can have a generation of business owners and entrepreneurs who build companies from small to large, which is what every economy, which is, every legitimate pathway to wealth, that's where it came from. Walmart was Sam Walton with a pickup truck, a storefront, and a high school education. Goldman Sachs was a poor guy named Goldman and a poor guy named Sachs, who 100 years ago walked door to door and sold financial services because they couldn't get in the skyscrapers. They had to go door to door. Now they own the skyscraper. What can we do to reimagine possibilities in Brazil? We got to rewire. We got to upgrade our software, Thomas. Rewire our brains. We have to think big.
John, this is such an amazing, how the convergence of the ideas that we have here today have brought us all together. We have been talking before about, we talk about a lot about science fiction, how the world will operate and the Jetsons and all that stuff with the machine, with equipment, self-driving cars. And we never thought about social fiction. And you bringing here is basically a social fiction. How do we create our future in a different social environment? And this is what we were talking before, you with Eduardo Lira, and he's creating a social fiction and changing the favelas through education, through role models, through all the items. We didn't name them, but those 5 steps, those 5 fundamentals, they are in his story, in Paulo's story. Paulo has a book of invisible opportunities. Basically, that's it. That group of people, that GDP, lost GDP since the year 2000, that's an invisible opportunity. Yeah. And that's in your book, I think, because it is so connected. It's amazing how much the 3 stories of today are so connected. The message is so powerful. The opportunities are so similar. Yeah. And as businesses, we have to understand that we have to empower, we have to develop business, we have to support that development. So you talk about the education, you talk about financial literacy, self-esteem.
Yeah, go ahead. I just opened up page 65. The book is not out yet. Comes out in about 3 weeks or 2 weeks. But maybe more. Yeah, 2 weeks. But here are the five pillars of success. Massive education. Massive. As much education you shove down your throat. Look at my library room here. Books everywhere. I can't, I asked Quincy Jones, how'd you get so smart? He said, easy. I'm just nosy as hell. I want to know everything about everything. Number 2, understanding the numbers, economics, entrepreneurship, financial literacy. The numbers drive everything in the world. Family structure and resiliency. We talked about that. Self-esteem and confidence. Those are different. Self-esteem is how I esteem myself. If I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't love me, I'm not going to love you. I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. And hurt people hurt people. So you got to get people to take up ownership of their own lives and to esteem themselves. Confidence comes from competence. So if you're competent at something, you become confident. But you can have high confidence and low self-esteem. You need folks to have both. And then finally, role models. Whatever you hang around, whatever you model, whatever you see, that's what you will become. That is what you will be.
And that's amazing. And how much connection with all the three speeches, the three conversation we had is out there. I'm surprised with that calculation that Citibank did of the lost GDP just for this century.
Yeah, 16 trillion US.
Yeah, it's insane. If you are a business person, if you're a business leader, if you're a large company, you want to tap into that wealth. You want to contribute. You want to be part of that. You want to elevate that. That part of the country, of a community, to actually be able to tap into, make that wealth circulate, not just leave it behind. It's a lost game. Take people off the bench. Love it. That's such a powerful analogy. You
take the largest countries in the world, put them together into one GDP bucket, and it's smaller than that $16 trillion number. So racism and ignorance has cost the U.S. economy the equivalent of the top economies in the world in total for 1 year. That's just stupid. That's just ignorance. Like, racism is just stupid. It's just mathematically stupid. We need to knock it off. And we need to figure out, how do we get on the same team? Here in America, Thomas, I say in the book that everybody wants to be an American except Americans. And if you're China and you're Russia, you're trying to undermine America to get us to stop believing in ourselves and stop cooperating with each other, stop believing that we're brothers and sisters, so that you can put a wedge between us. The Bible says, where there's no vision, the people perish, so that you can then take our position. You want to hurt America so you can become America. People want to hurt Brazil so they can become Brazil. You have got magic in a bottle there. And you need to protect that culture and that joy and that opportunity with every fiber in your body.
Yes, amazing. So I'm going to invite Paulo Rogério, who is he is an author. He wrote the book Invisible Opportunities, because I'm sure he has additional questions for you. So, Paulo, welcome.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, John. How are you doing, brother?
Good.
Wow. Yes, I'm really, really happy to hear this conversation here. John, I'm very surprised, the knowledge you have about Brazil and all the inspiration talk. And this is really, really important. So we share, as you mentioned, same problems, but also we could find one same solution, right, for our problems. Brazil itself, it's a country, established and created with the base of slavery in the African blood,
Just like America.
Exactly. So the same history. And I think one thing we need is to connect more. So when I was in the US, I spent 1 year in the US, and I was surprised when I started people there. I'm from Brazil. They, what? Do they have blacks in Brazil? I said, of course. We have the largest African communities of South Africa. How do you talk about? How do you ask him this question? But I think you being here, it's a very, very good inspiration. And I share, here in Brazil, I run a business incubator, business accelerator. We help entrepreneurs. So I wrote this book, and a lot of ideas and thoughts you have really shared here. And I have a question for you, John. supply diverse chain is something really important and something much bigger than in the US than in Brazil. And to be honest, there is no supply diverse projects in programs in Brazil. But the funny thing is the same company operates here in Brazil, they operate in US. Actually, the headquarters in US. I'll talk all of companies, car companies, beers, everything. So my question to you is, how do you see the importance of a supply diverse chain in US? And how can you bring this to Brazil as well?
Well, the democracy, the opportunity is only as prevalent as the people make it. And if somebody can get away with doing nothing and earning something or owning everything, why wouldn't they? I mean, greed is unfortunately, and selfishness is some part of human nature. And it may be short-termism. It may not have a long-term effect, but people do things that are stupid on the long term all day and all night. President Bill Clinton told me it's hard to get somebody to agree to the truth when the lie is paying their paycheck. It's hard to get somebody to agree to the truth when the lie is paying their paycheck. Mm-hmm. So I know that Thomas and I were talking. There's some training programs that are starting now for people of African descent in Brazil. That's a great start. But training for what? Are you going to train them to write a check or to cash it? And they're going to cash checks. Are we training them to be low-wage workers or living wage workers? Are we training them to be domestic help or some job that'll be outsourced or done away with automation and computerization that's coming? Are we training them for a professional skill that has a future in the new economy, like in engineering, the sciences, math, et cetera, et cetera? So it's a great start, but you got to push. You got to push corporations. You got to write letters to the boards of directors, write letters to the CEOs. You got to write letters to your government, your government leaders. You got to write. You got to call for a meeting with the Federal Reserve. Your version of the Federal Reserve. You got to press people on not just social issues, but economic empowerment issues. I call them civil rights. SILVER. From civil rights, we have mastered civil rights in the streets, but we have not mastered silver rights in the suites. And we have now got to master the economic agenda and begin to talk with a new language. You guys are talking Portuguese and English. You're bilingual, all right? You can go to Detroit. People would think, Paolo, that you were a brother, 100 through and through. You start talking, they go, whoa, Española, but because you're bilingual. Why can't you be bilingual on social and economics? Mm-hmm. Government, civil society, and business. We have got to find a new way to talk, a new way to communicate, and the power of the buck, the power of the consumer is incredible. If you guys stop buying, if the poor, think about the 5 or 10 things the poor in the struggling class, in the middle class buy there. If they just stop buying all that stuff, what companies get impacted? Conversely, if they buy 20% more, which companies get advanced? Those companies should be the first ones doing training programs, doing internships. All this is my new Marshall Plan. You can search on the internet and find it, the new Marshall Plan. I've written it all out. You can apply and just adopt it for Brazil. Internships, apprenticeships, training programs, financial literacy programs for all, how to start a business, how to become an entrepreneur, helping to change the laws there so people can become owners. I mean, you got to look back at these favelas and all this free labor and say, it's probably a good deal, Mr. Government, if you just allow some of these folks to own their land so they don't tear it and everything else up. I mean, it's probably a good deal for everybody. It's easy for them to say yes to that. They don't even value it at the moment. But they aren't growing any more land in the world. Land that's not seen as valuable today will be invaluable tomorrow. The land that was given to blacks and then taken away after Lincoln was killed was along the eastern coast, all the beachfront property. Because in the agricultural age, nobody values that. Yeah. Well, what's invaluable today? Beachfront property.
Beachfront.
So I think you just need to come up with a new business plan. You get your group together and figure out who you're going to start writing letters to, and about what.
Well, just this insight, just the question Paulo asked you, and your insight. If the company in the U.S. has a policy of diverse supply chain and it's not applied here, we already know which companies we're going to write letter to.
Yeah.
Why are you not complying with your headquarters policy and write a letter here and write a letter back to the U.S.? That's amazing.
Yeah, and those companies are surprised. I guarantee you, they're surprised you haven't already asked them.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, we got the money set aside. The foundation has the money, but if they're not asking, we'll just we'll take the money and put it someplace else.
You're right.
The grease. I mean, to say to them what Thomas just said, you're doing this in the U.S., you're doing this in South Africa, you're doing this here. We are X% of your customers here. We want you to do this here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it sounds right. And to be honest, we are seeing a lot of pressure now. So the new generation, John here, is really trying to achieve more and pushing hard. And as you said, role model is very important. So that's why we see a lot of connections. And I want to have an invitation to you when this pandemic ends. You definitely should come to Brazil, right, Thomas? It'll be really, really important to have you here. Inspiring folks, because for a long time you used to hear only, okay, you have to rely on some states or rely on someone else, but the message here is clear: economic powers, autonomy, make sure things happen. So it's really, really good to have this conversation.
Yeah, and I've been there before. I've spoken there before. I'd be happy to come back. But let me say this: somebody says, well, I hear what John is saying, but I want to work with the nonprofit sector. Okay, what do you think the nonprofit money comes from? Okay, I hear what John is saying, but I want to work in the government. Where do you think the government money comes from?
Yep.
Okay, I hear what John Bryan's saying, but I want to work with the churches. Where do you think the church money comes from? I mean,
Exactly.
Everything in the world from an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And I'll leave you with this. My late friend Shimon Peres was in Jordan. He was Jewish. He came over from Israel to meet with me in Jordan at the World Economic Forum meeting, and he said, John, as you grow your work, many people were going to. This is 2 decades ago. People are going to criticize your work. You keep going, and when they criticize you, you tell them this: even if you wanted to distribute money like a socialist, you got to first collect money like a capitalist. So if people want to give the money away or give it to the poor or start a daycare, that's great. That's fine. But you got to make it first. And Ambassador Andrew Young was talking to 18 heads of states in Africa, my mentor, Andrew Young, and he said to 18 Black heads of states, you can make more money from a growing economy than you can steal from a dying economy.
Yeah, that's really good.
You've got to convince your public policy holders that they got to play an honest game. The government officials, you're going to end up robbing a country that has no resources left. You got to somehow convince the drug dealers that it's going to end up in probation, prison, parole, or death. There's no retirement for a drug dealer. Become a legal entrepreneur. You got great talent.
Yeah.
The gang members, that they've got incredible hustle. An entrepreneur works 18 hours, they keep getting a job. Let's flip that into a legitimate business. You've got to convince people who are fighting against each other in Brazil that the only way forward is to fight with each other against the real enemy, which is not Brazilians.
Yeah.
And like I said, some of them have the wrong product, but they have all the skills ready to be great entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The creativity is there. All it's there.
Yeah. And make sure you translate that book into Portuguese. But meanwhile, you can just order it on October 6th. I've also got an audio version of the book. That's also
nice.
Right.
Congrats, John. Congrats.
It's my fifth book. Those are the other 1, 2, 3, 4. There's five books. How the Pork is Capitalism. I'm not even an author. I mean, that's not my full-time job. I'm an entrepreneur, How I got off in the nonprofit, advising governments, writing books, giving speeches, I don't know. But I'm an entrepreneur. That's my day job. I just think that we have got to be thought leaders, and we've got to be advocates. We got to be hope givers, and we've got to be job creators, and we've got to be inspirers. We got to be like Thomas.
Well, like you inspire us. We're happy to have you here with us, and John, I just want to thank you for being here with us, sharing your insights, sharing your thoughts, your experience, your energy, your power, your inspiration. Paulo, he said when he heard that you're going to be here, he said, "Well, just stay there. We want you. We want to make sure you have a part on this special moment."
My pleasure.
Very special.
Thank you so much, John. Hope to see you soon, and hopefully in Brazil as well.
Peace
Okay.
and love.
Peace and love. Thank you.
Change the world.